Hello and welcome to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Talks, and this is officially my first time hosting this podcast this semester. I'm very excited to have this role as the podcast host for not only the show but for the network. I'm going to try my best to bring you guys all the best content, best discussion, and best just overall football talk over the period that I am the football host of the show. But that being said, let's talk about some football. I have some exciting segments for you guys here today. After now that we're officially into the off season, the NFL off season, there's going to be a lot of talking points that I want to get to over the course of these episodes. And the first segment, I kind of want to start doing a different thing, my own little segment that I can have each and every show, call out chip shot, the chip shot segments or the chip shots of the day, where basically I'll be bringing you guys stories, football related stories about players, coaches, or anything that's connected to football, but off the field, away from games, results, and anything like that. You know, stuff off the field, activities, news that some players might get into. Because I think it's just fun to talk about. It's entertaining to see what these guys get into off the field, away from the game. It's not all about winning, losing, stats, records, and stuff like that. So that's one segment I'm always going to have to try to reoccur, bring you guys something new, exciting to talk about. Later on in the show, I'll be bringing up some of the teams that I think and that I saw on ESPN. They were talking about the teams that are under the most pressure to win this off season, and I'll be giving my thoughts on their list and my thoughts on some changes that I thought could have been made to that list. So that'll be the second segment. After that, after the halfway point of the show, I'll be talking about Tua Tagovailoa and his contract heading into next year, what it looks like for him, what kind of contract he could be getting, and how could it affect the Dolphins roster going forward, because they have a good amount of free agents and important free agents that they need to really decide how they're going to spend this money and what's best for them going forward. And to wrap it all up later in the show, I'm going to talk about the Cowboys and them being all in this coming season. Those were exact words from owner and general manager Jerry Jones. He had those quotes at the Senior Bowl this season, this off season, I should say. And I want to talk about what that means, the narrative surrounding that, and how this offseason is potentially one of the biggest ones we've seen in recent Cowboys history because of the contracts, the players that are there, and the decisions that are probably going to ultimately be made after the season, if it all goes good, bad, or any other way. So those are all the segments I'm going to talk about. I'm going to jump into the first one, but before I do that, I want to ask you guys to please look at the graphic I have up there, and I want to remind you guys to please like and follow the show. We get a lot of questions from viewers during the show, so to make sure that your question is seen, please use the tip and donations link running across the ticker down below me with any question that you may have. The tip and donations link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, the tip and donations link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. This just makes sure your question gets put to the top of the list. Make sure I'm able to see it and read it right away when it comes up. And it's also just a big help for not only the show, but the network and everybody here. So I greatly appreciate if you guys could do that for me with any of your questions. So that being said, now I can officially jump into the first segment of today's show, the Chip Shots segment of the show. And some interesting stories I thought I would discuss with everyone, everyone watching here, is obviously the event that's going to occur in about or less than half an hour now, Eastern time at 7 o'clock is the first event of the NBA All-Stars game. First event, the Celebrity All-Stars game. There's a lot of well-known celebrities, but the ones I want to talk about are Micah Parsons, CJ Stroud, and Miko Hardman, Puka Nacua, some of the NFL guys that are going to actually be playing in this NBA All-Stars game. When I first saw the list, I it was initially just Micah Parsons and C.J. Stroud competing in the game, but after a while, I think just a few days ago, Miko Hardman announced that he was going to be playing in the game, so he got added. And then Puka Nakua was actually on the Pat McAfee show, and Pat asked him about the NBA All-Star Celebrity Game, and Puka said he'd love to. He actually nailed a shot there while he was live on the air, and then he got added to the rosters. So that's going to be exciting to see. I only know from just researching it prior to this episode that Miko Hardman is on Stephen A's team as one of the coaches. Stephen A, the other coach, is Shannon Sharp. I know that Miko Hardman is on Stephen A's team. I couldn't find what team Puka Nakua was going to be on, but would assume it would be Shannon Sharp's team. But that being said, it's going to be an exciting thing just because I don't know if a lot of you guys have been paying attention to just podcasts, sports media in general. Micah Parsons has his own podcast. He actually had C.J. Stroud on there, and they had some good banter between both of them, saying how, just trash talking each other, talking about the game. And Micah, like I'm sure most of you have seen, has been talking about him being extremely good at basketball. But CJ comes back and says how he played basketball in high school, and I thought it was so funny that he brought up one performance that he had against Miami Heat rookie forward Jaime Hawkins Jr. in high school, and how he dropped 40 on him in that game, and how everybody went crazy. He hit a game-winning shot there at the end of that game, and he said he dropped 40 points on him, and everybody rushed the court and stuff like that. And that got me like thinking that CJ Stroud, all right, he thinks he's good at basketball. That's one thing. And then I've seen him recently in Travis Scott's HBCU celebrity baseball or softball game that happened recently, and he did pretty well on it. The guy's just a natural athlete. From what I see, he's not only great at football, but just seeing him do all this other stuff, he just looks like a great athlete, and that's why I won't be able to catch the whole game, obviously, because I'll be live here. But my predictions for that game, I expect it to be very entertaining for not only the players on the court, but there's always stuff that happens off the court. They're gonna have different events there as well. The game's actually gonna be played on the new LED innovative court, which carries a lot of different animations, and I'm sure different like celebrations for the any player that hits a three, gets a dunk or something, makes a big play in the game. It's gonna be pretty cool to see because it's the first time they're trying this new LED court out in a game like this. They're gonna have other events as well, other Ruffles based events during the game, so that's gonna add to the ambiance of the game. I mentioned which team some of the players were on. Stephen A's team also has Meta World Peace on it, on top of CJ Stroud, Miko Hardman, and I wrote somebody else, and I think those were the biggest names I remembered. So I think it's going to be a very entertaining game, and if I were to pick a winner just based on the rosters, I think I would have to go with Stephen A's team, just because Stephen A's done it before. He's taken it very seriously, I think, and it's kind of funny that I saw today that he actually, it's not funny that he got hurt, but he got hurt actually playing Micah Parsons one-on-one during the court. They might have been shooting around. I don't know how intense this one-on-one was, but he actually hurt his ankle and was taken to the hospital to get evaluated for that ankle. He's okay to coach, though, in tonight's game, but it looks like he's taking it very seriously from last year. I'm pretty sure he lost, so I think he's coming back with a vengeance. He's got some good players on their team. Most of all, CJ Stroud. I keep mentioning him because I just think he's going to just show out today and show everyone how great of an athlete he is. He's my vote for MVP. I think they're going to take it by a good amount, honestly. I know there's other players like Kai Cenat, a streamer on that team. So it's going to be very entertaining. But I am ultimately taking Stephen A's team to win, and CJ Stroud is my pick for the MVP. The other story I wanted to bring up quickly during this segment is some recent quotes I saw from Jordan Mailata that ties into a bigger theme that I want to get into. Just this offseason has really been surrounded, or these playoffs, I should say, were really surrounded around a couple of things. The Chiefs and where they were going to make it back to the Super Bowl. The 49ers as well. Could they finally get it done with Brock Purdy, obviously? The Lions making it that far to the NFC Championship. The Bills, could they finally do it with home field advantage against the Chiefs? But the two biggest ones that kind of developed late were obviously all the news and hype around Taylor Swift being at the games and everything, and Travis Kelce playing better while she's there. They always had the camera up there, like I'm sure everybody knows, doesn't need me to bring it up again. But over the course of the playoffs, Jason Kelce, obviously the Eagles got eliminated in the first round, so he joined in the games, the antics of the celebrations during the games, and it was just funny because it was all over social media that Jason Kelce and what he was doing at the Bills game, jumping in with the crowd, had his shirt off, drinking beers and everything with the fans outside before the game. Then you see him up in the suite in the Super Bowl and just everything else. I don't have to mention too much about the Super Bowl celebrations that I'm sure everyone saw, them at the after parties and everything, Jason Kelce having the time of his life. And they asked his O-line teammate Jordan Mailata about his retirement because there was a lot of speculation that he would be retiring, but he didn't officially announce it. So Jordan Mailata, his quotes were when they asked him about, do you think Jason Kelce will come back? He said, "There's no shot. You're telling me how he's going shirts off in games, gambling in casinos. He's coming back? No way. He's having too much fun." And you could kind of see that to some aspect. Even though he hasn't announced anything, Jason Kelce, I think I've seen him more than ever now be more of a media, more of a personality. He's shown everyone his personality and not a lot more, not just because he has his own podcast with his brother, a very successful podcast, but I think he's going on other podcasts now. He's having fun at the Pro Bowl with his kids, his wife, the Super Bowl parties and everything, and just getting or showing everyone the personalities that he has, his family has. I'm sure everyone's seen the clips of his daughters as well, him and his daughters. His wife, Kylie Kelce, has also become very like a famous celebrity in some aspects with NFL fans and everyone that follows her podcast, follows the Kelces. And I just think it's funny how how everyone's just noticing this about Jason Kelce, how much of a character he is, because you don't see it too much on the field, right? Because he's only the center of the Eagles. There's not too much flashiness that comes with that position. But now, seeing all these stuff, everyone kind of, he's become like America's sweetheart now in a sense, right? Everyone loves him. Everyone loves seeing him at the games, seeing him off the field, seeing him what kind of activities he's been involved in. Like I mentioned, he's been going on podcasts. He was on the Shaq podcast and talked about a story when him and his brother Travis Kelce obviously grew up in a house, always competing, and he told a funny story about how they actually got into a fight, a pretty serious one while they were playing basketball, and they almost like hurt their dad when he was trying to separate them. So those kind of funny, relatable stories as that he can provide is something that I think has kind of grown him into something that he probably wasn't expecting, to be honestly, just because of the way he seems to not care about everybody else's opinion. But it just gets me thinking, he's so prominent in these roles now in media, and he's always on social media with his podcast and everything. Could he have a career in TV somehow, some way? He already got the podcast, and I'm sure he's going to get offers for TV in the near future if he does decide to retire. So that was the interesting part about that surrounding Jason Kelce and that story. It was funny how they asked Jordan Mailata about it and how he's kind of accepting the fact that he's never seen Jason Kelce like this, so happy off the field and really living his best life. So I just thought I'd talk about that. And for this segment, I'm always going to try to have 2, potentially 3 stories to talk about, but today I only had 2 for this episode, so that'll wrap it up for the first segment. I'm going to go to a quick break here for a few minutes, and I'll be back with the second segment where I'll talk about which teams are under the most pressure heading into this offseason and who really needs to win this offseason to have a good regular season and season overall. So Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back after this short break.